Potter.
Scottie B going to work in the paint.
Eastern Conference Final. New NBA champion. And it's a team from Toronto, Canada. We, the North, are now we, the champions.
What is going on, Raptors Nation? It is Luca here, back with the Raptors Nation podcast. Hope you guys are doing well on this Thursday, May 23rd. We got an action-packed pod for all of you as, we got a lot of things to talk about, guys. We're going to be taking a look at the Ringer's latest top 25, under 25 ranking. Then we're going to take a look at Zach Edey, who's been getting a lot of buzz as it pertains to landing with the Toronto Raptors. And then we're going to get to some of your questions in the first ever Raptors Mailbag edition of this pod. It's going to be a segment towards the end. And I'm looking to run a lot more of these as we are in the dog days of the Raptors offseason. Obviously, things are a little bit slow now in terms of the news cycle. So, we're going to get to some of your questions. And if you guys want to submit your questions, I'm going to be doing a post on the community page of this channel whenever I am going to be doing a mailbag segment. And then also you can submit your questions on my Instagram at Luca Rosano when I propose the mailbag. So before we dive right into it, do me a solid, guys. Drop a like on the video and subscribe to the channel for more Raptors pods just like these. All right. So to begin this pod by talking about Scottie Barnes. Good old Scottie. Scottie Barnes. You know, he got injured. His season was over on March 1st. Raptors, they stunk it up the rest of the way. We know how that went. But Scottie Barnes clearly made his mark. He burst onto the scene, had a breakout season in his third year with the Raptors. Barnes, magnificent numbers, made it to the All-Star game for the first time of his career. The future is certainly bright when it comes to Scottie Barnes. But how did Scottie rank when the Ringer put out their list of the top 25 players, 25 and under? Well, Scottie Barnes, he ranked 13th. And we are going to look at what the Ringer had to say about him. And then I'm going to let you know if I think the Ringer got it right or not. So first, we're going to quickly glance at the Ringer's top 25 list here. Jabari Smith Jr. came in at 25. They had Darius Garland at 24. Desmond Bane, 23. Jalen Green, 22. Jalen Johnson, 21. LaMelo Ball, 20. Jaren Jackson Jr., 19. Franz Wagner, 18. They had Brandon Miller, 17. Evan Mobley tied for 15, along with Trae Young. And then 14, Cade Cunningham. And then Scottie Barnes came in at number 13. Number 12, Sengun. So Sengun ranking one spot ahead of Barnes. And then tied for 10th, they had Morant with Zion. In 9th, they had Paolo Banchero. 8, Jalen Williams. 7, Chet Holmgren. So a couple of Thunder players going back-to-back there. 6, Tyrese Maxey. 5, Tyrese Halliburton. 4, Luca. Surprising. I'll get to that in just a minute. 3, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. 2, Anthony Edwards. And number 1, Victor Wembanyama. So before we get into what I think the top 10 list should be, let's take a look first at what the Ringer had to say about Scottie Barnes. And I'm going to share my screen here. Just bear with me. All right. So they had Scottie 13. So I'm going to just read what the Ringer had to say here for this bit. So Scottie Barnes, you look at the numbers, guys, you know, obviously 22 years old, 19.9 points, 8.2 rebounds, 6.1 assists, 1.5 blocks this past season on 52.8% effective field goal percentage, 60 games played, shortened due to the injury. So this is what they wrote. Reason for hope: Barnes, 3 years in, has traced the outline of a star with game-changing versatility, a playmaking hub who is also already an elite defensive playmaker from the help side. The only player in NBA history who's had a comparable stat line to the one Barnes produced in the 2023-2024 season is a 26-year-old Kevin Garnett. That's news to me. There's a fast-growing confidence in his perimeter game that gives him a shot at mutating into something different from the evolutionary Draymond Green he's presented as thus far. Then they wrote reason for doubt. While Barnes made a significant leap last season in terms of his scoring package, his deep range accuracy has consistently tailed off in the latter portions of each season. It's fair to wonder whether he lacks the flexibility and fluidity in his overall athleticism to truly excel as a primary shot creator on a bad team, let alone a great one. And then they wrote in the signature move part, the three-point block, a hallmark of Toronto's defensive schemes over the past 5 years. Barnes has become the exemplar of hard contests out on the perimeter, leveraging his nearly 7'3" wingspan and the ground coverage he's capable of with his long strides. Barnes nearly had twice as many three-point blocks, 17, as Victor Wembanyama did, 9, last season. So that is what the Ringer had to say about Scottie Barnes. So, in short, did the Ringer get this right? I don't think so. I'm not going to go over their entire 25, but, off the bat, Trey being at 15, that doesn't make sense. I'm going to look at their top 10 in particular, and I basically re-ranked this list, and I'm going to give you what I think is the top 10 when looking at the 25 best NBA players age 25 and under in the NBA today. So we'll go from 10 to 1. So I do have Scottie Barnes in the top 10. I'm going to give Scottie the benefit of the doubt. I think him being at 13 is fair considering the amount of talent on this list. However, I would have Barnes ahead of Alfred Sengun and a couple others, which I'll get to. But, Scottie, actually, I'll say it now. I have Scottie ahead of Alfred Sengun, and which you guys are going to find out in just a minute. I actually have Jalen Williams and Chet Holmgren out of the top 10. With all due respect to those players, obviously big contributors on the Thunder team that just made it to the second round of the playoffs. Their future's bright. But I think right now, an overall potential, which is, a couple areas that the Ringer looked at when compiling this list. There's a couple of criteria that they put into this list, but when you just look at who's the better player now in their potential, I'm taking Scottie Barnes over Sengun, Jalen Williams, and Chet Holmgren. I'll tell you that much. So with that being said, that propels Scottie Barnes into my top 10. I think Scottie is a top 10 talent when looking at this list of the 25 best players of players 25 and under. So I got Barnes 10. Barnes cracks my top 10. Number 9, I got Zion. I think, the Ringer has that one right. They haven't tied for 10th, but I think Zion's 9, and I would have loved to rank him higher. But the thing about Zion, to me, is just his health. He is slightly ahead of Scottie for me at this point because when he is healthy, Zion shows you that he can be that superstar, no doubt about it. I mean, we saw him take over games. He was taking over the play-in game for the Pelicans and just doing his thing. So we know Zion can be a big-time player. But the thing about Zion is his health. And because it's been a continuous theme of him being unable to stay healthy, he's fallen here. And, I give him maybe another season, 2 at most, where if he continues to be a guy that's sidelined and he cannot get that health right, then, Zion's going to be looked back on as a player of what if, because he's such a great talent, but the injuries definitely factor in here. So Zion barely ahead of Scottie. I was debating this. I was going to put Zion on 10, but Barnes 10. I got Zion 9. Halliburton, I got 8. I don't think Halliburton is, what do the Ringer have it in the top 5? I don't see Halliburton as a top 5 guy. I'm sorry. I think, it's a little bit inflated now just because of what the Pacers have been doing. You got to think, too, the Pacers have had so much good luck these playoffs in terms of the other teams getting decimated with injuries. So, yeah, I got Halliburton 8. Maxey, I got 7. I'm super high on Maxey. I think long-term, I'm taking Maxey over Halliburton. I think he's just the better player. 6, I got Banchero. I think Banchero, at number, what do they have him here? At number 9, that's not right. I got Banchero a lot higher. I mean, a couple spots higher. I got him at number 6. Paolo, I think, is going to be an absolute stud. He's already shown us how great of a player he can be. Superstar level player in just his second year in the NBA. the sky's the limit for this kid. So I got Paolo at 6. I got Ja Morant at 5. I think it's a travesty that the Ringer had Ja tied for 10th. I mean, I know he's dealt with a lot of off the court issues and he didn't play this past season, or the majority of this past season, obviously coming back from suspension, then got injured. But Ja is still one of the most electrifying players in the NBA. This dude is still that guy. And I think he's going to quickly make people, remember just who he is this coming season. Ja, you still can't discredit what he's been able to show you in just a short amount of time in the league, in the postseason. I really like Ja's game. And I think if he can just get his head on straight and, stays out of trouble, he is going to have just a super bright future. So I got Ja 5. Ja cracks my top 5. I think him at 10 was just an absolute disservice. 4, I got Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. 3, I got Anthony Edwards. And then 2, I got Victor Wembanyama. I do believe in the Wemby hype. I know a lot of people are saying Wemby should be a lot lower on this list. Look, guys, I think Wemby's going to be the best NBA player in the next 3 years. So one of the biggest criteria in this is you look at their potential. And I think this is going to be Wemby's league. And I really was close to having him number 1, but you can't not have Luca at number 1. I think it's an absolute disgrace that the Ringer ranks Luca number 4 when he is clearly arguably the best player in the world right now. I mean, it's him and Jokic, but Jokic is obviously older than 25, but best player in the world, arguably best player in these playoffs, has accomplished so much. And in the next 5 years, I really don't see Luca slowing down. I don't. I think he's going to have the Mavericks in a position where that team's going to be competing for titles. So you got to have Luca at number 1. And it's crazy because I thought he was older, but he's literally just 25. And it feels like he's had like a whole career already just because of how young he's been since we've been talking about him, dating back to his days in Europe. So Luca's number 1. So just to recap, Barnes cracks my top 10. Barnes 10, Zion 9. I got Halliburton 8, Maxey 7, Banchero 6, Morant 5, Shai 4, Edwards 3, Wemby 2, Luca 1. That is my top 10 when looking at this list. But Scottie Barnes, look, I'll take this. Ranking 13th, but like I said, I have him ahead of Sengun, Jalen Williams, and Chet Holmgren right now. I think Jalen Williams and Chet Holmgren super, super inflated with their rating just because of what the Thunder have been able to do. But we got to kind of pump the brakes on that. But I'm definitely taking Scottie over those 3. So yeah, Scottie's in my top 10, guys. Let me know. Did the Ringer get it right? What is your top 10? And do you think Scottie Barnes deserves to be in the top 10 of this list? All right, guys. Next, we're going to talk about Zach Edey. He is gaining a lot of steam, man. I said this in a separate draft video that I did the other day. I mean, it's crazy, right? Because we always looked at Zach Edey for the most part as a second rounder, but now, you're seeing him go as high as in the lottery. And in a draft where you are not sure about these prospects and it can change leading up to the day of the draft, we could see some major surprises. And one of those surprises could be Edey moving up the mock drafts here. And I mean, he has been. And Zach Edey being linked to Toronto has come up now quite a bit. And it came up once again. Jonathan Wasserman of Bleacher Report put out his latest mock draft, and he has the Raptors taking the Purdue big man, Zach Edey, with the 19th pick. This is what he said in his article. At least Zach Edey may have opened scouts' imaginations at the combine with the comfort level he demonstrated making jump shots during drills. He was hitting shots and threes. Regardless, for a center who measures just under 7'4" and stalks with a near 7'11" wingspan, his touch and footwork have gotten sharp enough for scouts to picture a useful low post scorer and offensive rebounder. Teams deeper up front will look elsewhere. So will those who question how playable he'll be defensively in the playoffs. He'll be enticing to teams looking to add more size, physicality around the basket, and interior offense. So I said this in that draft piece. By the way, go check it out if you haven't already the other day, that I wouldn't take Edey at 19. Look, I get he could be, one of those players that can end up panning out, but there is a lot of uncertainty because of that. You look at Edey's game, he's that traditional big. He's not known for spacing the floor and hitting shots. And I'm not going to buy too much into, him making jump shots during his drills. at the combine. So it's tough. But look, Edey, I mean, you look at him, he does so much of his damage around the basket. Huge big man, traditional center. And if he somehow does figure it out and translates his game from college to the NBA, he could be a big get for whatever team rolls the dice on him. And could the Raptors be that team? I would definitely take Edey in a heartbeat at 31. With the way things are going, it seems like there's no chance he's going to still be on the board by 31. Someone's going to take him, probably, if not at by this point, in the mid 20 range. So 31, I think, is out of the question. But I'm still not entirely sold when it comes to taking Edey at 19. But, you look at Edey, obviously would fit a need for the Raptors right away. Raptors, I think, are going to need, a backup point guard, a center. They need a younger center. They got Pirtle. They need some depth behind him. They got Olynyk. So you got the two veteran bigs, bringing in a younger big. Edey's Canadian. Can he get that jumper to develop well enough where all of a sudden he adds that to his repertoire? Because there's no question about Edey, being able to score down low. We saw him dominate in college. And then obviously the quickness on defense. Is he going to be able to keep up with, the players that he's going to be asked to guard? That's going to be another question as well. But Edey, he's gaining a lot of steam. And I think, this is a draft where you definitely take a chance when maybe normally you wouldn't take a chance on a pick like this. So I could definitely see Edey surprise a lot of people. I could see him being taken even before this, but just me personally, 19, I would not take Zach Edey. I did my list the other day. There's other guys that I would much rather have the Raptors take in this spot. Yves Missy is a big man that I like a lot. I'd rather take him here. Kel'el Ware. Then if you're looking for, a scorer, you got Keyshawn George. He was projected actually by ESPN and Jonathan Gavoni's latest mock draft at 19. Bub Carrington is a popular name coming up. I like him a ton as well. And then Isaiah Collier, if he falls to 19, I think that's another great option for the Raptors as, a backup guard to Quickly. And Collier, he had that injury, what kind of deflated his stock, but I think that could be a steal. So, yeah, there are a lot of interesting different ways this thing can go. But right now, I am not sold taking Zach Edey at number 19. Again, if he somehow falls, I would definitely take him with that 31, the Raptors' second round pick. But at 19, I think the Raptors would be better suited going in one of those other directions, taking one of those other players that I just named. So, a Tyler Smith as well. He's been, I think I've seen him projected to the Raptors in a couple mock drafts at this spot. So, yeah, we're going to see what happens, guys. But look, good for Edey. I wish him all the best. I want to see this guy succeed, and I want to see him prove a lot of people wrong, because I think there is a lot of talent to this guy. And I think, there's a world where he is able to figure it out, and he ends up being a great addition to whichever team drafts him. So time will tell what will happen with Zach Edey and where he will fall. We're still a month out. I mean, the NBA draft is the 26th, 27th. So still a lot of time to rearrange things and put out more mock drafts. All right, guys. So we're going to conclude today's show with a Raptors mailbag. If you guys want to submit your questions, I'm going to be putting out a post on the community post of this channel, the community tab. I'll put it before I want to do another one of these mailbag segments, and then also I'll put it out on my Instagram. Go follow me over there at Luca Rosano. At Luca Rosano. You can follow me on Twitter at Luca Rosano3, but I'll be doing it on my Instagram at Luca Rosano. And yeah, this is a new segment, so yeah, I thought we would just start it up with a couple of quick questions here, just to kind of get a feel for things. And again, if you want to submit your questions, look out for the community tab of this channel, and also my Instagram at Luca Rosano. All right, so we're gonna go through some quick questions here. So the first one is from Kevin -GF6EU. He asks, will the Raptors trade Jakob and Bruce Brown? So I think it's a given. The Raptors are going to trade Bruce Brown. Doug Smith of the Toronto Star put out a piece last week stating that is what is the belief, out of Raptors land, that they are going to trade Brown. right after the draft around that time. I mean, in a month's time. So it's going to happen fairly quick. I think there is going to be a situation where the Raptors are going to be able to strike a deal with Brown. So I see the Raptors picking up Brown's option and then, using him in a deal. And I hope the Raptors are able to salvage some value because, you can look back to that Pascal Siakam trade tree, and I think this is going to be a crucial part of that. Obviously, the Raptors were able to get a ton of value for Anunoby. It's been underwhelming value for Siakam, who obviously right now is in the Eastern Conference Finals. We know how big of a piece he's been for the Pacers. So hopefully the Raptors are able to, swing Brown and get some value back, because I think Brown will be a very nice piece to a team that is looking to win a championship. Look, the Denver Nuggets lost Brown. They got ousted in the second round by Minnesota. And one of the things against Denver in that series was the fact that they were lacking that depth from off the bench. And, now they're going to have to go out and get some depth from off the bench. So they literally lost a guy in Brown who they could have used for this past playoff run. So I think Brown will be very useful in that regard. So I do see the Raptors trading Brown. It's just going to come down to obviously what the deal is going to be. And if you're the Raptors, you would think they are going to want a first round pick, because that was reportedly the asking price around the trade deadline when the Raptors failed to get something done for Brown. But I think there are going to be, fringe contenders who will be in the lookout for a guy like Brown. Yeah, I can see Brown definitely get traded. As for Jakob Poeltl, that's the interesting one. And that's why I started with Brown, because I think there's no doubt in my mind when it comes to that. But with Jakob Poeltl, it's very interesting. I think it comes down to how the Raptors view this thing, right? Because if the Raptors are going to play the waiting game, if they're going to want to attempt to be bad, to get a high pick next year, remember they do own their 2025 first round pick. They don't have to worry about losing it to San Antonio anymore because they lost it this year. I made this argument when talking about what the Raptors should do with Sean. If the Raptors do have plans of tanking, you tank by, trading away Poeltl, because that is in essence going to make you a worse basketball team. And, you run it without him. And there are going to be teams, I think, who are going to be in, the market for a big man like Poeltl. Like OKC makes a ton of sense. They showed their lack of size, and it really hurt them in that second round playoff series against the Mavericks, as the Mavs had their big bodies just impose their will, Lively, Daniel Gafford. So there are going to be teams, I think, interested. But again, it comes down to how the Raptors view this thing. If they want to push the envelope, compete, Jakob Poeltl obviously wants to be on a winning team, then I can see them sticking it out with him. But if the Raptors have other plans and they want to continue to break this thing up and get a lot worse before they get better, Poeltl would make a lot of sense when talking about continuing to tear this thing down. The next question is AIIK7503 asking, do you try to trade up into the draft to get some more talent? Bruce, Jakob. I think the only way it makes sense for the Raptors to trade up is if they're really, really in love with Saloon. And I said it in my draft piece the other day, like he would be my dream pick. And there was a world where Saloon was going to kind of hover and maybe the Raptors could snag him, but now no chance, because Saloon, he could go as high as 8. I've seen him go to the Spurs. They just drafted a French guy who's pretty darn good. They could, take a chance on this one. And I think Saloon has a chance to being a very, very special player. He's one of those guys that you draft and stash. 18 years old. There's going to be no immediate expectations. You take your time with this kid and you just let him develop gradually, and you hope he becomes a stud in the next 5 years. So this would be the ultimate Masai Ujiri pick. So the only way I see the Raptors trading up in this draft is if Masai really loves Saloon and he doesn't go in the top 10. Maybe he goes towards the end of the lottery and the Raptors can strike a deal like that. But in all likelihood, I don't see the Raptors trading up in this draft. All right, the last question here. I'm not going to read the username. It's way too long. What do the Raptors need to do out of this draft and free agency to be a playoff team this upcoming season? Or are we years away from contending for the playoffs? Also with Barnes quickly, Jakob and Barrett at the level they're currently playing at, would we be skipping steps in the rebuild if we choose to go and try to win this season upcoming? This is a really, really good question. So I think for the Raptors to be a playoff team. And by playoff, I'll look at it as a top 6. That's when I view you as like, hey, like, you're in the top 6, no doubt about it. You're going to be contending. I think the Raptors, regardless, are going to have a chance for the play-in just because of how bad I think the bottom of the East is going to be going into next season. But in terms of the playoffs, yeah, they're going to need a lot of good things to happen. They're going to need, their 19 pick to hit. They're going to have to add some nice complementary pieces in free agency. Assuming they do trade Brown and they don't bring back Gary Trent Jr., they're going to have some flexibility, but obviously their main priority is going to be bringing back Quickly. But I think it's really going to come down to if they can get Barrett or Quickly to take a leap. I'm not saying the same type of leap that Scottie Barnes just took, but a massive leap where it's like, wow, okay, the Raptors, they got Scottie playing at elite level. He's an all-star. Can Barrett make that leap where he's all of a sudden borderline all-star, or Quickly? Can he make like a Maxey type leap and really be that number 2? So I think it would be imperative on that. And really, yeah, it's going to come down to how the Raptors, see their long-term plans, because I think going back to the Pirtle trade, if they trade Pirtle, Masai and the Raptors are going to take this thing slow. And that's the thing. At the end of the day, you want to compete and be a playoff team, but you also don't want to rush things, because if the Raptors don't have any leaps being taken, Scottie's playing at the elite level that he is, I still see them being a playing team, but are they going to be a team that is going to compete and contend? They're nowhere close to that. That's going to take time. And that's where you need to progress slowly. So I guess the best way of answering this is, if the Raptors are going to take that next step next season, they're going to need, Barrett and Quickly, maybe even both of them, to take a drastic leap forward. And then the Raptors are going to have to add some nice, pieces this offseason, just around the edge type pieces. 19, they're going to have to hit with their number 19 pick. Can he be a guy who contributes right away? So it's going to take for a lot of good things to happen. But the more likely thing is that the Raptors, they show you a lot of good things. They play hard. I don't think they're going to be a bottom 5 team, but maybe they're around that, 10 range, worst 10 range lottery. And, you get a 10 to 14 pick in next year's draft, and you just continue to add, and you continue to take things slow and just hope, the continuity continues to build. I think realistically, fighting for the plan if things go well, and then, you continue to add from that. But yeah, the Raptors, this is going to be imperative on, internal guys taking leaps. That is going to conclude this mailbag portion of the pod. Again, thank you to everybody who submitted their questions. And again, guys, if you want to submit your question, you can submit your question. Look out for the community tab on this YouTube channel, and also my Instagram at Luca Rosano. That is going to conclude today's show, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Drop a like, subscribe to the channel, give this podcast a 5-star rating wherever you get your podcast, Apple, iTunes, or Spotify. It would be greatly appreciated. Thank you so much for watching. Until next time, this is Luca signing off. Stay safe.